Hey everybody, today we're going to be making a fold-over holster with adjustable retention using a 1.5 inch overhook, which makes it tuckable for you. And we're going to be making it for a Glock 19. The mold that we're going to use today is a holster mold, and it is prepped specifically for the Glock 19. Enjoy the video. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our prepped holster mold here. We're just going to lay it on the front of our HOLSTEX Raptor. We're going to mark where we want it to get our sheet the size that we want it. And we're just going to take our square, butt it up against the edge of our cutting sheet, and then we're going to score it. As always, remember, score on the front of the sheet. So in the case of the HOLSTEX Raptor, the Raptor texture is the front. All right, so what we've got here is a retention plate. And the reason that we use a retention plate is, as opposed to using an eyelet down below the trigger area near the muzzle end, we are going to be able to use an EPDM washer, and that allows us to have adjustable retention on it. So all that retention plate does is creates that slight gap when we fold the HOLSTEX over. Instead of pressing the two sides of the HOLSTEX together, we'll press onto that plate and give us that little bit of a gap. And then we want to figure out where we want our overhook strut. So once we decide that, then we will take our overhook strut die guide, and we're just going to tape it onto our molding prop. So now we're going to heat our HOLSTEX. HOLSTEX, you're generally going to heat to a max of about 320. The reason for that is because this texture is done a little bit differently. It's extruded, but then it goes into a large press that actually puts a different pattern into it. That's how the pattern can be on both sides. But the secondary pattern, when it's pressed in, it's done at a slightly lower temperature. So 320, you can kind of go higher. The reason we say 320 to be safe is because that way you know you're well below that temperature. I've seen people go 340 and it might work, it might not. So we're going to fold it over our prop here, and then we're just going to slide that retention plate in there. Now you might ask, well wait, why didn't we tape the retention plate so that it's in the middle of the molding prop? And that is simply because when we squeeze the press down, it is going to put that retention plate in roughly the middle of the molding prop because it's pressing from both sides. So folks, today we're using a holster mold, as you can see, as we're making this particular holster. We have many variations of the holster mold. One, there are numerous makes and models, from Glock to SIG to Smith & Wesson. There are so many I can't even name them all, of the makes and models. In addition, we offer them in an unprepped and a prepped. Now when I say unprepped for holster molds, it's not fully unprepped. It just doesn't have the sight channel on it. That way, if you want a higher sight channel or a lower sight channel, or maybe you prefer a rounded sight channel or a square sight channel, however you decide that you want to make it, it gives you that possibility. Whereas the prepped, we already have the sight channel already prepped out, and that mold is ready to go for you right out of the box. So stop by Holstersmith and pick you up a holster mold today. as you can see when we're looking, you can really see the dimples from that die guide in this Black Raptor HOLSTEX. So that makes it nice. You'll still mark it with a pen to make sure you get your holes where you want them, but that's kind of what's nice about these die guides. Not only does it create the indentation so that your posts don't stick down and scratch the weapon when you're done, but it also does already give you an idea of where the holes are. What we're going to do here is kind of mark where we want to cut off all this extra that's just not necessary. And if you're unsure, remember, leave more, cut off less. You can always come back later, and cut off a little bit more, but once you cut off too much, you can't go back. So all right, now we're just going to cut our HOLSTEX here, get it out of the way. Remember, always wear your hearing and eye protection, dust mask, something like that when you're doing this. Be very careful. And we do find that a bandsaw is the best way to do this, but you can use other methods of cutting as well. So, completely up to you. All right, so we've got it roughed out. And like I said, the dimples are big enough on this one. We're not even going to mark the holes. We're just going to use our dimples. All right, now the reason that we're putting this little block of wood in there is because that's roughly the same thickness as the retention plate, so that when we drill our holes into both sides, the hole is lined up. If you don't do that, you let your both sides squeeze together, and then you drill the hole, then when you pull them back apart, the holes won't be perfectly lined up. And here we're just going to do some rough finishing before we put hardware in. When you do this, go slow and easy. And the reason that we go slow and easy is to make sure that we don't take off too much. You do want to make sure that you get good and clear of the back side of the trigger guard there, because the important thing with the holster is that when you go to take it out, take your weapon out, you want to make sure that when you get that grip, that your index finger doesn't rub against the holster. If you feel your index finger nicking on the edge of the holster there, over repeated times of drawing, you are going to wind up getting a little bit of a blister there. So, but you don't want to take so much off that then it leaves an opening inside the trigger guard where something could potentially get in there and snag on the trigger. So again, that's why you go slow and easy and check it lots of times. All right, now we're just going to do a little bit more smoothing on it. And this is definitely easier to do before you get all your hardware on, because that way you can pull it apart a little bit. You can kind of smooth the inside edge of the cuts as well as the outside. And then finally, we can do a little polishing. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and start putting our hardware on. We'll start with our overhook strut because it's a little bit easier to do that before we put our retention in there. Now, one thing to note is we did 3 straight holes here. You could just do 2 straight holes if you wanted no adjustment, top and bottom, that would be fine. If you wanted to make it adjustable, you would put the bottom hole in, and then you would drill that center hole, but then you would slot that center hole out. You would just not put the top one in. You've got the slot in the actual overhook. So what you would do is you would just leave the top post out, put the bottom and the middle post in, and then you could loosen that post and screw to allow you to adjust the cant if you so desire. And what I do recommend, if you're doing this for yourself, is that you get a little Vibratite. It's nice, they come in little individual packets. It's VTC3, and it's a type of Vibratite that will allow you to hold the screw and post together. It won't come loose from vibration, but you can still loosen it by hand. And the nice thing about that, if you do make holsters that you sell or give away to people, you can send a little packet of that Vibratite with them. They're pretty inexpensive. And you can say, hey, once this is exactly the way that you want it, then let them go ahead and Vibratite it if you have an adjustment. So now we're just going to put our tensioner, is what I'm calling it in here. That's our EPDM washer in the middle, so that's compressible, so you can allow this to get a little bit more snug or loose depending on what type of fit and feel that the customer wants in the holster. So that's something that they can adjust. It is important to let them know, of course, that that when they adjust, they need to be careful. You don't want it so loose that when you hold it upside down, it just falls right out. But you want it loose enough that you can draw the pistol out without pulling the holster off of your belt. The nice thing about this overhook is when you hook it on your belt, it's made so that you can tuck it in. So you can tuck a shirt into it behind it. And once you got the shirt behind it, the only thing that you're really going to see is the plastic. So generally, if you're wearing maybe black pants or a black belt, especially if you're wearing a jacket, then it would be very unnoticeable to anyone unless they are specifically looking for something like this. So there you have it. You have now made a holster for a Glock 19. The great thing is that it's tuckable, so you can wear it even if you have to tuck in a dressy shirt. That overhook, the part that's outside the belt, is pretty small, so just a jacket or even just another light shirt over it make it very easy to conceal. Hope you've enjoyed building it. Also hope you liked this video. If you did, please take the time to click like. If you didn't get to build it along with us, just go right here, take you directly to Holstersmith, and you can get everything that you need, from the overhook to the screws, the Raptor HOLSTEX, the molding prop, everything that you need to make this holster. Also, please take the time to subscribe to our channel, because every week we're coming out with new and exciting videos, and you are not going to want to miss them.